Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. I'll be presenting on cloud and SaaS and what it means to you. If any time you feel that you have any questions, please feel free to come up. I'll try to keep the session quite interactive. You got it? Okay. I'll keep the session interactive. So if you not have to have your dinner, I apologize. I'm standing in way of your dinner. But if you have, okay, we're all set for some energetic discussion on the cloud and SaaS. I suppose when you look at cloud, image like that, and you see a cloud in the sky looking this way, I mean, what comes to your mind? Anyone? If you see clouds like that in the sky. I don't know about you, but it looks pretty scary to me. Right? I'll be confused, I'll be frightened, I have no idea what's happening up there. Well, the whole cloud business and the whole SaaS business is somewhat like that. Everybody has a camp, everybody takes a side what cloud and SaaS means. So we'll try here to at least identify and define for our purpose what cloud and SaaS means. Essentially what happens in the cloud space is that what was mainframe to the 70s and 80s was the client server to the 90s and web in the 2000s, and today we just call it cloud. And actually cloud is just a buzzword for a lot of the technologies that were developed over the years. And essentially we can divide clouds into two big areas. One is that what we call the public cloud and the private cloud. But before we go into the details of what makes something public and private, cloud essentially has two basic premises. The first one is which infrastructure as a service is being provided on a demand basis, and essentially you use it like a utility which you turn on a tap and you use it and you're needed for it, you're billed for it. So cloud essentially talks in the area of infrastructure as a service. It also talks about platform as a service, is also involved in the software as a service. So in the sense, cloud covers three basic group areas. And the private and public space is essentially divided by where the service level, security, and regulatory compliance are within a premise. So usually when you talk about private cloud, it's within a premise of a company, whether it's small or it's large. And if you're talking about public cloud, you're looking at for value-added service by cloud service providers, essentially one that provides a service over a very large area. And they tend to have multiple companies using the facilities or the infrastructure. So having understood that there is a private and a public cloud, and that in the private and the public cloud, they tend to divide, or in terms of the service providers, there are three basic services that are provided. One falls under the infrastructure layer. That usually has to do with your compute capability, has to do with your storage capability, your network capability, as well as value-added services like backup and so on. And then there's another layer which is the platform as a service. Essentially what that is web development tools that you do not have to install on your desktop, but you use over the cloud to build applications that sit on the cloud infrastructure. Now, the application that is built on those tools that sits on this infrastructure are called software as a service. And essentially what that is application that sit on an environment in which whenever you use something, it's a subscription base, it's on demand. And the reason why software as a service sits on this layer is because you want to have the scalability and the ability to burst when you are increasing the usage. So if applications are not designed like what we have seen earlier in the 1990s where it's client server, you physically have to shove machines, compute power in order to meet it. And usually it takes quite some time for compute power when you're buying it to be put into a data center environment. It will probably take about, going through the purchase order process, it's going to take about 3 weeks or so before you get it. But what cloud promises is on demand, which means that a lot of things are virtualized. So another characteristic that we find in cloud is the virtualization capability. And what's interesting about obviously having a virtualized environment is we can get something on demand. And we are in a instant coffee generation. We want something, we click, and that's pretty much what cloud offers. So, but they come in three flavors in terms of the service. So let's look at the rise of the cloud. And here are some numbers which I think are interesting. Rise of the cloud, large enterprise, at least in trial stage of cloud computing initiatives. That's 80%. That's pretty huge. That means a large number of organizations, majority are dabbling in the cloud space. And in terms of the consumerization, 11% of information workers visit social networking for work. And a lot of this social networking site sits on the cloud. So in some sense, even in the work area, cloud plays a role from the social networking standpoint. Infrastructure cost and complexity. So 70% of IT budget is spent maintaining inflexible and siloed data center equipment. So that's a lot of money. So what that means is that if you have an existing data center, there's a lot of money that goes into maintaining it. So is cloud option for many? It seems so if you are looking to have burstable, scalable solution. Mobile and distributed network, 84% have a remote workforce. So I don't know how many of you come from MNCs, but I think you tend to work while you're on the move, right? Whether it's you're looking at a mobile phone and stopping at Starbucks, checking out the desktop and so on. And then multi-generation workforce, 4 million enter the workforce each year. So these numbers are for the multi-generation workforce is from the US, but what it basically means is that this group of people are the YouTube generation, the social network generation. They're used to that kind of a technology, right? And it's exciting to find out what's going to happen. Gartner states this, which I think was very interesting for small business, that 20% of businesses will own no IT assets next year. So what that means is that small businesses are beginning to realize it's better to focus on my domain, what I'm good at, than having to worry and spend 70% of my IT budget maintaining a system which doesn't help me necessarily become profitable in my business. So that's a staggering number if you ask me. It's 1 out of 5 businesses will not going to invest on an IT infrastructure within an office. And what that means is that it's going to have a large impact on the hosting environment. Let's look at some reasons why business want to go to clouds. Okay. First of all, business requirements constantly growing. If you're stagnant, you're not going to be doing very well in the business space. So let's look at some of the things. Globalization, where of course the internet makes the world a lot smaller. Global recession and recovery, and that has a significant impact because every time the economy string of growth, and if you are not able to have the ability to string and grow with it, you'll find that your cost is going to keep going up. Right information at the right time, because that's what empowers a knowledge worker. IT agility and cost efficiency is absolutely key to stay relevant and to manage costs. Then game changers driving technology and innovation, but there are also innovation that's keeping the whole IT going and the impact on the business. And what are they? Digital born data. Now we used to write, I used to remember the days when you had to have carbon copy. You had 2 pieces of paper and then you got to type, and that's how you transfer, that's how you duplicate basically your information and what you type on. I mean, it doesn't necessarily I'm that old, but I remember the days when I had to use that. But today, what do? You're sitting there, you're interested in that picture, what do? You take out your iPhone, you snap at it, and then you capture your information digitally. Guess what? It's going to be stored somewhere, right? Okay, so digital born data is occurring every second. When you take a picture, you write a note, you put an SMS, you send an email, and so on. It's constantly growing. Virtualization. like I alluded earlier, virtualization has to happen because you're not able to meet the growing demand of digitally born data if you didn't have virtualization, because you can't keep up. The time you want to load up a server physically and hook it up, it's going to take a few hours to a few days, but digital information is created constantly, right? Hardware innovation, Moore's law. You now have flash drives. You're not talking about hard disk that spins, because hard disk that spin has a limit in the ability for it to spin. It can only do so much. But if you have a flash drive, you can actually have more people pulling at that data without delay, without worrying about caching and all the issues that is related to read-write. Cloud services, no. It's not cloud technology, it's cloud services. There's now a whole bunch of applications and services that's sitting on the cloud which you don't realize. And let's discover some of this as we go on. And these are some of the things why we think we should consider looking at cloud technology and applications for it. And in a sense, these and other drivers for cloud we want to understand. Was a survey done that basically want to know if I use cloud application, SaaS application, what are the key drivers? The first one is software is always up to date because it's always maintained by somebody else. You don't have to worry about the version. How many of you use Gmail? Yeah? You use that, right? You don't care about the version, right? If there's something new that pops up, you just use it. So there's nothing you have to worry about. Do I have the latest 2003 Word, or it's 2010, or is it Exchange, or is it Express? You don't care. You just use the application, right? So it's always up to date. You don't quite have to bother about what version is coming up. Second thing is, how many of you use your Gmail on your mobile phone, right? Practically all of you would want to look at it. So you can use your application any device, anywhere. So that's what's driving the cloud. You will reduce costs, certainly, because you don't have to lug around your notebook. You don't have to buy a notebook. So of course the notebook people don't want to hear that. You know, the iPads are all coming in, tablets. We'll have access to new services that we won't have in-house, right? Now, I use the example of Gmail. You work in an organization. Sorry, I can't send this to you because there's a limit. There's a limit in my ability to send it because my file size I can only do at 10 meg, but this thing is 25. What do? You whip out your Gmail and you send it to the fellow. So, cloud service providers allow you to use technology and services that circumvent some of the limitations that you face. So there's some of the interesting things that drive people to using the cloud. Let's look at the virtual versus the physical, and this is the IDC 2010 server virtualization data. What's interesting is that the shipped machines that are virtualized, basically there are 9 million servers that have been shipped by 2014, 7.7 million servers that have been shipped in 2011. Every 4 servers that goes out by 2014, one is a virtual. And it's staggering when you think about it. Because by 2015, there will be 85 million virtual instances of servers. There's a whole lot of virtual servers out there. So the statistics and the trend is very clear. Everybody's going virtual. Cloud computing economics. Let's look at some of these things. Talked a little bit earlier about private public cloud, and so you'll see that the total cost of ownership starts to drop. The reason why you are able to drop is because for virtual machine you can switch it off. You can take a physical machine and create 4 virtual machines out of it, right? So if you don't need it, you can switch off one of the virtual machines. But in terms of a hardware, physical server is amortized. It's a start point. So it continues to drop. And one of the key factors is hosting is leading this transition to the cloud. We know Amazon Web Services being in Singapore. We know of Microsoft here, and bunch of other cloud service providers. We know Singtel, StarHub, and M1 is doing something about it. And this hosting capability where the hosters, the cloud service providers, are transforming the way cloud is being adopted. And let's look at what it is today. Hosting is the fastest growing server tools business segment, 4 times faster than enterprise. Right? It basically means that there are more people doing the outsource in terms of hosting on the cloud space than they're actually creating all the physical servers within their own premise. Cloud instances are growing 45%, right? And the STBS stands for Server Tools and Businesses license are 3 times faster than volume license. What that basically means, the service provider license are growing faster than if you do a volume license within a company.
Is that a Microsoft? Because that's a Microsoft licensing term, SPA.
Yeah, that's a Microsoft SPA licensing, right? The Giacomo is talking about the service provider licensing agreement. So in that sense, it gives you a good idea that volume-based, where you come in and say, I have 1,000 employees, and I want to license a volume-based thing, a lot of it is now becoming a service provider license agreement. In other words, you pay when you use it. If you don't use it, you don't have to pay. That's basically what it means. So by 2014, 80% of all new software will be deployed via cloud. That's staggering. You're now able to go online and look for application and then use it. Versus now wandering around Funan Center or Simlim and looking for some pirated thing and try to figure out if that's what makes sense for you. And then the nice thing about having things on the cloud is this whole practice of try before you buy, right? You can't do that when you walk around Funan or Challenger and couldn't certainly not try. So 1/3 of all new business will be consumed by SaaS, and this source comes from IDC. If anybody needs all this source information, please feel free to come to me. I'll get them to you. Cloud service provider will account for 20% of combined server and storage spending. So those who are in the hosting space, we're going to be consuming a lot of these servers that will be used for virtualization and allowing for SaaS developers as well as end users to consume it. So when Harry met Sally, okay, the world has changed quite a bit because Sally over there is doing flowers and selling flowers, and then there's a guy called Harry, and basically he's a very good programmer. And how do they enhance each other's business? Well, one of the things they can certainly do is they can meet in the cloud. Because you will find that a lot of ISVs, independent service vendors and developers are producing a lot of application that very often was not possible years ago. The reason is because of the cost. Because if Harry wanted to set up an application that even do anything to do with payroll or health or e-learning or hosted or collaboration solution, he's got to buy the servers, buy the platform, figure out a way to have to get the bandwidth, get it hosted. It's going to cost him a bomb. It's completely changed because the way Harry is going to develop his application is he's going to go up to the cloud, look for some platform as a service, look for some compute capability in Amazon Web Services at 10 cents per hour, figure out how that storage is cost, spend 40 days and 40 nights writing an application on that environment and we make available to Sally. So the whole concept of the blue ocean strategy comes in because it is now possible for a one-man show to write an application that someone of a small business end user like Sally could use and willingly pay for in order for her to concentrate on doing her small business, rather than going out and buying some few $1,000 accounting solution to help her run her business. So that's how cloud is changing the whole ecosystem of cottage industry for ISVs and SaaS developers. And I think that's very exciting. And there are many companies out there, from Google, Microsoft to Salesforce and all that, who are allowing developers to use their tools to create this. So the whole idea is that let's not get lost in the cloud. Because it's not about the cloud, it's about the service that's created in the cloud that's going to make the difference. Alright? Cloud or no cloud, it's always about service. And bringing together best SaaS and cloud services for the industries effectively change the way economics is done. I mean, you just look at the way Steve Jobs came out with iTunes, and you're paying like 99 cents and it's $1 billion business, and how that slowly transformed the App Store, where you have 100,000 plus application, and you are letting the guy who's sitting at home 40 days and nights like Harry to write an application in Object-C, get it approved by Apple App Store, and it's running an application everybody is downloading. So that is only possible because cloud technologies and the virtualization technology and all the optimization that comes from the platform can take place to allow for Harry to just put stuff together, and you'll be able to reach a very large audience. Right? So real solutions for real problems are coming up. Right? Very often you look at your Apple App Store. Yes, you're going to download Angry Bird, and because you're frustrated, you're going to shoot somebody. But very often you're going to find you're looking for a service there that will enhance your life, that help you look for that fashion information, to help you look for that place through the map, right? That's going to be life-changing. And all this is only possible because of the way cloud technologies are being put together by the service providers.